Okay, we'd like to introduce our next speaker, Rebecca Hirsh, who is an oncology dietitian here at Perlmutter Cancer Center.
Pleasure to meet everybody today, and I'm excited that I can talk to you about something that I love to talk about, which is food. So just to right from the start, while cancer can leave us feeling helpless, there are measures that you can take to help reduce your risk. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle by choosing healthy foods and staying physically active is a key part of this. To be clear, this does not mean that there is a cause and effect relationship that exists between food and cancer development. Rather, long-term unhealthy food choices and their after effect can potentially increase the risk of developing the disease. Now, specific to breast cancer, an established controllable risk factor is the management of your weight. Feel empowered by your diet because it does have an impact. Nutrients found in a healthy diet are necessary in creating a set of instructions for your body to follow and perform in the way it was designed to function. By regularly making healthy food choices, you are doing what you can to help your body stay on track. And I just want to touch on something that Dr. Joseph said when you kind of were mentioning about the website and things kind of being toxic from the internet. I think my answer to so many questions when I kind of get random questions about food and impact on cancer status really is the most toxic thing is the internet. You read a lot of crazy things and how things will impact your cancer status, but as much as I love talking about food. If diet was the answer to all of this, we would kind of all be in a different place. Okay, the American Institute for Cancer Research and the World Cancer Research Fund have created the Continuous Update Project, which is an ongoing analysis of cancer prevention and survival relative to diet, nutrition, and physical activity all over the world. And relative to breast cancer, the latest results have reinforced and shown that adult weight gain and excess body fat increases the risk of breast cancer development in the postmenopausal population. Alcoholic drinks increase the risk of post and premenopausal breast cancers. Regular vigorous physical activity reduces the risk of both post and premenopausal breast cancers. And moderate level physical activity reduces the risk of postmenopausal breast cancer. Now take a breath, because I'm not here to tell you that you need to drastically change the way you eat. To achieve any nutrition-related goals that you may be setting for yourself. Rather, I would like to pass along a few tips that may be helpful in making small changes in your day-to-day, all of which will guide you in the right direction of doing what you can to take control. So first, aim for plenty of fruits and vegetables. Focus on fiber. Include lean and plant-based proteins in your daily menu. Limit daily added sugar intake. Reduce bad fats and focus on the good ones, and limit your alcohol intake. Now, research has shown that women with a higher intake of fruits and vegetables may have a lower risk of developing breast cancer. So now more research needs to be done with this, but in 2018, the International Journal of Cancer released an online analysis of pre-existing questionnaires that were taken among thousands of women, and what they were able to find were that women that were consuming 5.5 servings of fruits and vegetables or more, compared to those consuming 2.5 or less, had 11% lower risk of developing breast cancer. Now, again, though more research needs to be done, and produce is not already a staple in your daily menu, just think forward and start eating more. And don't be intimidated by the numbers. Just to give you an example, one serving of vegetables, for instance, is a half a cup of cooked vegetables. So on a night that you're making a nice stir fry, you're probably going to do double of that anyway, and that's already 2 servings. 4 ounces of fruit or vegetable juice is considered a serving. So in an 8-ounce glass, maybe you're having an 8-ounce glass of orange juice in the morning, that's already 2 servings. So don't be so intimidated by the numbers you're seeing here with regards to serving size. Strive to consume at least 5 to 9 servings total, and go colorful. Color is actually quite indicative of the different vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that you find in plants. Okay, so if I could change my middle name, and I think this is my go-to when I talk to patients, if I could change my middle name, it would be fiber. I do think that fiber is pretty much the answer to everything. It's definitely part of a solid foundation when it comes to eating healthy. Also, if you think about it, fiber is pretty much found in mostly healthy foods. You find it in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and lentils. So, on top of, cancer risk aside, it helps with the things like regularity of your bowel movements, it helps with weight management, and helps to decrease things like diabetes and heart disease. In 2016, a study was published and demonstrated a strong correlation between fiber intake and a lower risk of breast cancer development in the young adult population. Now, a lot more research needs to be done to kind of connect this to different age brackets, but I mean, it screams potential. Fiber is definitely a good thing. And these are just examples, not necessarily of the exact serving size, but a good amount of what I would recommend in the fiber content that comes along. Anything with 4 to 5 grams per serving of fiber is technically a high fiber food. Okay. Now, protein does an abundance of things for our body. Sources of protein come from both animals and plants, and some high protein foods are healthier than others because of what comes along with them. So when choosing protein, focus on the entire package. Are you also getting healthy fats or harmful fats? Are you getting the benefit of fiber, or are there hidden salts? Research has suggested that there may be a link with processed meats and breast cancer risk. A lot more research needs to be done. There is an established connection between processed meats and other types of cancer, like colorectal cancer. Sources of processed meats are things like sausage, bacon, hot dogs, and salami. I'm not here today to tell you that when you go to a baseball game, you shouldn't have a hot dog. I actually encourage it, but should you have a hot dog every single day? No, and I'll say this again in a few minutes. One of my favorite words is moderation. Do things in moderation. I like to be realistic with my suggestions, and you shouldn't shy away from the foods that you love. You should kind of just know how to eat them. Focus your protein to lean animal protein sources such as poultry, fish, lean cuts of beef, and plant sources such as beans, nuts, seeds, certain grains, like for instance, quinoa, if you've heard of quinoa, is actually very rich with protein. Vegetables, peas are actually very rich in protein as well, have a lot of protein as well. I like to encourage people to go vegetarian 1 day a week, 1 night a week. So these are all just ways to kind of re-guide your eating habits. Sorry, my throat is so dry, my voice keeps fluttering. Okay. So added sugars are syrups that are added to foods and beverages when they are processed or prepared. These sugars contain almost no nutrients, and for the most part, it's the exact definition of an empty calorie. In the American diet, the most common places to find added sugars are soft drinks, cakes, cookies, and pies. Yes, everything that sounds pretty good. But I definitely want to touch on the question I think I get asked most often: does sugar feed cancer? And the answer is no. It does not directly feed cancer. But as I've kind of already touched on, a known related risk factor to cancer is overweight obesity. So with too much added sugar in your diet and not enough exercise, there is that indirect connection that is just being kind of reinforced. You're more likely to gain more weight if you're having too much added sugar in your day-to-day. So currently the USDA has put out the 2015-2020 dietary guidelines that recommends that based on a 2,000 calorie diet, no more than 10% of your caloric intake should be coming from added sugar. So based on a 2,000 calorie diet, that would be about 200 calories or 12 teaspoons. So to illustrate better, 1 can of regular soda has about 120 to 125 calories that are coming from added sugar. That's almost about 2/3 of what the recommendation is. So maybe on the same day you decide to have a 6-ounce container of some type of flavored yogurt. That has about 70 to 75 calories coming from added sugar. Add the two together and you're already there. Who else knows what you're having over the course of the day? The American Heart Association puts out a recommendation of even a lower amount. Women should have no more than 6 tablespoons of added sugar a day, and men no more than 9. 6 tablespoons equaling about 100 calories, and 9 tablespoons equaling about 150. Anyway, it's believed that right now the American population is taking in about 22 teaspoons of added sugar a day, so that far exceeds what any of these recommendations are. So I think the takeaway from this, I'll take a step back and say if sugar just disappeared, it would be wonderful, but it doesn't. So the takeaway from this is just make your food choices wisely. Okay. Fat is not something that we need to shy away from. It plays an integral part in many of our body's functions. However, there are different types of fat. So briefly, we have our bad fats, we have our saturated and our trans fats, and these can be found in things like butter, French fries, chips, fatty cuts of beef and meat, donuts. Now, cancer aside, these can do things like, or will do things like increase your bad cholesterol and put you at risk for things like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. On the flip side of that, you have your good fats. You have your mono and polyunsaturated fats, and you can find these in things like salmon, extra virgin olive oil, nuts, seeds, one of my favorites, avocados, and this just does the exact opposite. It will increase your good cholesterol and decrease the risk of things like diabetes, diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Now, a study has been put out that shows some potential connection with the amount of fat that you're taking in and risk for breast cancer. They were, again, it was an analysis of questionnaires, and they were able to find that compared to the women that were consuming the least amount of fat, those that were consuming the most total fat and saturated fat were actually at a greater risk for developing hormone-sensitive breast cancer. Now, if you think about it, this connects to the likelihood that they're going to be gaining more weight. And again, overweight, obesity being one of those risk factors. Currently, the recommendation is no more than 20 to 35% of your daily caloric intake should come from fat. From that, 10% should be coming from saturated fat, and 0% should be coming from trans fat. Okay, so this is something, for a long time, research has consistently shown that drinking alcohol increases the risk for developing hormone-sensitive breast cancer. Compared to women that don't drink at all, women who have 3 alcoholic drinks per week have a 15% higher risk of breast cancer. Experts estimate that the risk of breast cancer goes up another 10% for any additional drink women regularly are having. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommends not to drink at all. But if you do drink alcohol, limit your consumption to no more than 2 drinks a day if you're a man, and 1 drink if you're a female. So, I think this is just a nice kind of visual with regards to what each of those kind of look like. So alcohol, there's so much research out there that really supports this, so I would just say kind of be aware. Okay, so with all of this said, the good news is you have control. The secret really, I think that we've kind of already touched on a little bit, is become familiar with your food, understand how much is too much, and then just be consistent. And in other words, just understand the concept of moderation. And I personally am all about visuals. So if you see on the bottom, you kind of have what's called the My Plate diagram. 50% of your plate should come from non-starchy vegetables. About 30% should come from your lean protein source, and about 20% should come from your whole grain or starch. Like I said, I'm all about visuals, so you can use your hand as well. So about 3 ounces is about the size of the palm of your hand. 1 cup of vegetables is the size of your fist. And 1 ounce is about, if you're having like a piece of cheese, would be the size of your thumb. So just become familiar with portion size and be consistent, and you're doing it correctly. I just also want to touch on the physical activity part of this, because many studies have found a link between regular exercise and a lower risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer or disease recurrence. Currently, the recommendation, strive for at least 30 minutes of moderate level aerobic activity over the course of 5 days per week. Try for 25 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity at least 3 days per week, or try for 2 days of some type of resistance training. So with regards to what moderate level activity is, briskly walking, leisurely biking, dancing, doing types of chores around your home, gardening. The vigorous activity is more of like jogging, fast-paced cycling of some kind, competitive sports, doing laps in a swimming pool, something like that. Okay, so hopefully I've given you pieces now. If you can put them all together, my favorite words, you can feel empowered because you are what you eat.